On Monday, a minister says that his program won't work. On Tuesday, he says he's going ahead with the program. When will the Prime Minister fire this minister?
Mr. Speaker, let's be clear. If Grandpa Joe is using AR-15s to go hunting, I think we have to have a much more serious conversation about hunting. If the leader of the opposition wants to have a real conversation about crime, he also has to have a real conversation about guns, Mr. Speaker.
That minister did have a real conversation about guns. He was caught on tape admitting that his program won't work.
We will continue to make smart criminal justice reforms to ensure that criminals are off our streets.
That's Public Safety Minister Gary Anandasangaree getting grilled in question period in the House of Commons today. While he wanted the next phase of the federal government's gun buyback program to be front and center following today's announcement, much of the focus, as you heard there, was on leaked audio of him in which he reveals his feelings about the program. Now, the Conservatives, as a consequence, as you heard there, are calling on the Prime Minister to fire Anandasangaree. Where does this all go from here? Let's bring in our front bench to talk about that. With me here in studio, former senior advisor to the Liberal Ontario governments of Dalton McGuinty and Kathleen Wynne. Dan Moulton is here. He's now a partner with Crestview Strategy. Next to him, Kathleen Monk is the former director of communications to the late Jack Layton. She's now the principal owner of Monk and Associates. And with us remotely, Larissa Waller is the founder of Hanley Strategies. She's a former head of communications for Ontario's Conservative Premier Doug Ford. And Laura Stone rounds us out tonight. She's a Queen's Park reporter for the Globe and Mail. Ladies, we wish you were also here in studio. Good to see everybody. Dan, I'll start with you. Is this leaked audio a fatal blow for this minister?
No, I don't think so. What I would say is he's handling this crisis relatively well. This is obviously an embarrassing moment for him, and it's unfortunate it happened. You know, he fully acknowledges that and has said we all have conversations that we wouldn't want recorded and released without our knowledge. And I think he is handling it as directly and as hands-on as he can. He's standing up in question period. He's taking the blows. He's here in your studio taking the tough questions on a day that he didn't have to be. So I think he deserves some credit for keeping his chin up and moving forward with this. The reality is I think we're still having the debate on the policy that we would be having whether or not this leaked audio existed or not. This was the fight that the Liberals knew they were going to be in with the Conservatives. And I think politically it's a fight that they want, right? Like they promised to bring forward this program, and they are bringing forward this program because it resonates with their voters and it resonates in important parts of this country for the Liberals politically, right? Like we are talking about that. We're acknowledging that the importance of this program in Quebec, the support that it has in Quebec, is a really strong political element to this conversation, and I don't think we should ignore that. This is the debate we were going to be having otherwise, and it's the debate the Liberals want to be having.
I think Dan's point is really well taken, Kathleen, that this is and we've seen evidence of this over the past number of years, right? This is a debate that the Liberals don't mind having because of the way in which their constituency of voters feels. My one caveat to that would be I'm not sure they want their own minister in the middle, in the middle of it, or conceding any territory to the other side. And I say that only because I looked today for all the reaction, and there were quite a few people, for example, associated with the terrible Danforth shooting, who were expressing disappointment at the way in which the comments came through from that leaked recording. So in that vein, I wonder if there's a bit of vulnerability.
Yeah, but then conversely, you saw Natalie Provost stand right beside him, a victim of the massacre. You saw Pauline Souvent put out press releases in support of the action. In fact, encouraging greater steps upon the government. I think in situations like this, when a cabinet minister gets in trouble, leaked comments or things get spilt. I remember Andy Scott, who was on a plane. He was the Solicitor General at the time. He made some inappropriate comments about an APEC investigation in the RCMP. He didn't resign right away, but eventually the calls for his resignation led to his resignation. But similarly, you just had Lisa Raitt on your panel just the other day, and she, told the story of her own time that she had to offer her resignation to Prime Minister Harper because of her inappropriate comments, and he refused it, and she stood on. She stood on to fight. And I think what Dan was pointing to was a little bit of a different tenor or stance of the Liberal government today. They've been accused for the last couple of weeks of really not getting their message together, not really coming out fighting, not being on that offensive tone. And frankly, 90% of the questions in question period today were calling for the Minister of Public Safety's resignation. And he took about 50% of them. But we also saw a lot of his other caucus members stand up, like Buckley Boulanger, who was a great spokesperson in the House, a Northern Saskatchewan Indigenous man who took on that rural Canadian identity and spoke to the issue about why this gun ban and replacement needs to come into place. And so, I don't know, I kind of saw a little fight in them today. but I agree with you that the headline is absolutely horrible, and to come out so strategically on the day before the launch, I mean, a coup to the folks who, on the other side of this debate, who put that out and really tried to kind of torpedo it from the get-go.
The anti-gun lobby.
The anti-gun lobby.
This is directly related to that group's efforts to try and stop this.
Okay, Larissa, let me get your take on how this is unfolded and where you think it goes.
I have so much to say about this in so little time. First, to Kathleen's point about equating this to Lisa Raitt's inappropriate comments. These aren't inappropriate comments. This is an admission that a hallmark policy of this government is flawed. It's a solution that doesn't actually even remotely address the problem of crime. And the minister is desperate for Canadians to think that everybody's wandering around with an AR-15. It could have been a drinking game, sincerely, of how many times he said AR-15, that he wants everyone to think, you know, they're everywhere. Oh my God, I'm going to be so scared. We have a crime problem. We have a bail problem. We have an illegal gun problem. We have a leaky border problem. None of this addresses that. And it's so much money spent on a policy that won't fix the actual problem. And he himself, and Dan just did it again, admitted that this is about politics in specific regions. So do a carve out in Quebec. Bring this policy out in Quebec. We do so many other carve-outs for Quebec, but don't impose it across the country. It's a waste of money. And calling for the minister's resignation, sure, he should resign, right? Like he was sloppy. He wasn't careful with his words, but really he was honest. And I think honestly, Conservatives should just call for more ministers to be honest about this god-awful policy.
Laura, your thoughts on, my sense is, based on what we can glean from the leak and based on the positioning of the government so far, that this program was already so far in the works, and not just, as I pointed out to the minister, it's been announced 5 years ago, not a lot accomplished, but like so far down the line that basically they came to the conclusion, we've just got to get it done, and we're going to, combine it with other things that address the stuff that Larissa is talking about, which may in fact be a bigger part of the problem. But I think the political cost, as crass as it is, to backing down from this among their constituency of voters was too great. That's right.
Yes, and they may have been able to kind of get away with that had that audio not leaked. I think that does sort of expose some of the hypocrisy that is at the source of this controversy. Kudos to the minister for appearing on your program and trying to explain himself. I fear, though, that the damage is done, certainly to his political career. He might not resign today or tomorrow or next week. I don't think that he's going to be the public safety minister in the long term. And I just think, the comments really kind of undermined a key issue for the Liberals, for Liberal voters, and for Canadians writ large. I mean, the issue of crime, the issue of gun violence is rising steadily, certainly in major urban centers and certainly in the polls. It's become a major preoccupation of voters. And I just think that having a minister in this position, kind of unable to explain himself, having this audio leaked where he casts doubt on the logic of his government's own policy, kind of makes light of certain elements of it that might not make sense, and just from a communications perspective, isn't really able to fully explain to the public the value of this policy proposal without saying that it's part of a larger package of other things that are coming and will move forward. I don't think this addresses a major preoccupation of the Canadian public right now. And so I don't think the minister is going to survive this long term. I'm not sure exactly what will happen to him. I think actually having the Conservatives calling for him to resign is a sure sign that he will not do so today. But I don't think that he is. I don't think that he is well positioned in this role to take it forward and address this issue that is certainly rising in the minds of Canadian voters.
We'll see what happens in that cabinet shuffle in the next little while, whenever that thing actually happens. Okay.